Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, all your boys, come kick it with us already. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino De Cespedes, and today we're joined by a special guest, a returning guest. But before we say hello, I'm also joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy, and that's because our guest today is now the world record holder for most guest appearances on the Into the Channel podcast with his third appearance today. He has been an intrepid football reporter and analyst for more than 20 years, and you can find his excellent work at bullynews.com and on the Over the Bar podcast. You should go subscribe to that podcast on YouTube. Pause us, go over, find Over the Bar, subscribe to that, and then come back. Once again, it is my honor and privilege to welcome to the program our Frauen Bundesliga trainer himself, Mr. Peter WEIS.
The pleasure is all mine, gentlemen. I'm a huge fan of the work that you've been doing, growing interest in the women's game on so many different levels. Your Champions League reviews, the interviews with some of the WWSL players, and all of this stuff. So it's an absolute honor to be on here with you again, and I expect we're going to have ourselves all manner of fun this evening.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Let's get it going. Mr. Grant Engel, where do you want to get started?
You know, Peter comes onto the show. He's not your typical guest. He gives us ideas right off the bat as he's joining. Kind of talked about maybe going up through the levels, starting with his domestic league. So let's do that. Let's start with the league that I know you and I have taken a keen interest in lately. Let's start with the Frauen Bundesliga.
Absolutely. Well, I, of course, put my money where my mouth is, and I attend as many Frauen Bundesliga matches as I can. And the general mood about the Frauen Bundesliga this year is quite good. I've had some really engaging conversations. The Männer Bundesliga is not looking so competitive with FC Bayern München. But the record champions Uli Hoeneß has predicted that they'll sew up the title by Easter. But in the Frauen Bundesliga, and I was happy to save this little bit of kiosk for you, this is from Sportbild, Germany's main sporting tabloid. We have Die Fantastischen Vier. Die Fantastischen Vier was also a cult German hip-hop band from this area of Germany that I was from, the Fantastic Four. And those Fantastic Four are Wolfsburg, Eintracht Frankfurt, FC Bayern München, and Bayern 04 Leverkusen. If you take a look at the Frauen Bundesliga table at the moment, the top four are separated by only 2 points, and this is quite a surprise due to some surprising results that we've had in the last couple of weeks. Both Wolfsburg and Bayern are technically the record champions in the women's game in Germany, and Eintracht and Leverkusen are the upstarts, both of whom have a pretty decent chance at the title. In my professional opinion, I think Eintracht have a better chance of securing the sensation. Ironically enough, that's also the case in the Männer Bundesliga. Eintracht Frankfurt are our last remaining hopes to take out the mighty Bavarians in that league. So it could be the case that the Rhein-Main-Adler, as they call them, from Germany's financial and commercial capital, will be taking crowns in both leagues. But we can talk a little bit about the players, of course. For fans of the women's game, there are plenty of interesting players in the Frauen Bundesliga. The big news this year, of course, was that some players actually came back from the WSL, namely Pernilla Harder, from former Wolfsburg player. She returned to Bayern. Of course, we are overjoyed that Georgia Stanway decided at this stage in her career to come play for Bayern. And also Lynette Bernstein, former Bayern player who played for Juventus for a couple of years. She came back as well. Now, Wolfsburg, you have your usual stars. You have Alexander Popp, who is no longer with the national team, but she is still playing club football. You have Jule Brandt, who has had some injury issues as of late. We also have Vivian Endemann, this Icelandic Dortier that I like very much. I've heard her name pronounced Svendis or also Svendis. Not quite sure what the proper pronunciation of the first name is. But for fans of the long throw, she is absolutely golden. She does a long throw as good as any man that I've ever seen.
She's got a cannon.
She does, for an arm. You might recall that if you were watching the women's Euros in 2021 in England. And of course, we're going to be pimping the coming women's Euros in Switzerland pretty hard on this pod. I promise you that. I fully expect you gentlemen to be here, and I hope that so many of your listeners will be joining us as well.
You mentioned Eintracht Frankfurt, and apologies for our very Americanized pronunciations. We'll get into a little bit of the cleanup there later. They seem to be on quite a tear. Some good results. They gave it to Wolfsburg 3-0 late September.
Mm-hmm.
They hung tight with Bayern, 1-1 draw early November. And basically there are two big-time scorers, Laura Freigang, Nicole Agnomi, sitting at the top of the goals plus assist category for the league.
Mm-hmm.
What is Eintracht Frankfurt doing right?
Well, first and foremost, they had the best transfer window, I think, of any of the top-tier Bundesliga sides. They brought in both Pia Sophie Volta, that's the defender, and Elisa Sens. And so the midfield of Sens and Isana Greve is quite effective. I think that's a great, effective double six setup. Greve reminds me a little bit of Lena Oberdorf. I don't think she possesses all of the natural skills, but and as a matter of fact, she's more of a defensive midfielder. Oberdorf can play 8. She can move into central defense. She can do all of that. But Greve is a player that I have my eye on, of course. Freigang and Agnomi are both cult figures for followers of the German game. Freigang is, if you go to a German women's national team match, probably half the jerseys that you'll see are going to be Freigang jerseys. She is finally getting a chance to break into the national team. I mean, she's only, at the age of 26. It's odd that she's had this amazing club career, but never seemed to really arrive at the German national team. Now with Alexandra Popp's retirement, she may be the new number 10. Nikki Agnomi is a player that every time I go to see the Eintracht Frauen at the Brentano Bad, I pick up a bunch of Agnomi jerseys and distribute them to all of my friends who have daughters in the United States, because she is just an absolute cult figure, incredibly athletic, probably the most natural 9 that has played for Germany in a very, very long time. Lea Schüller from Bayern is a little bit better in the air, a little bit more technical, a little bit more polished. But Nikki is a player that we're really happy to have. She's just such an interesting story. She grew up in Essen, I believe. She has a Ghanaian father and a Togolese mother. I might have those reversed, but she's German through and through.
So you talked about, at least in America, the most widely known German football club, Bayern Munich. They are sitting in pretty good position in the Champions League for the purposes of this show, but thinking about the league, after they have that kind of strange, probably somewhat disappointing draw with Vålerenga 1-1 in the Champions League, they come back, they notch a 2-1 victory over Freiburg. When you do have a massive club like that, and it seems like every time we look up, the men's side wins the Bundesliga, how do Bayern Munich fans react on the women's side when they're sitting third in the table?
Well, I don't know if they'll be sitting third in the table for long. My special tip to take the upset is going to be Eintracht this year. But what you have with Bayern is you just have this incredible amount of depth. Of course, Oberdorf has not been available a great deal this season, again, because of injuries. We were discussing this a little bit on the last pod. But you have so much. I mean, you have not just the likes of Pernille Harder and Georgia Stanway and Lea Schüller and Clara Bühl, but you also have veteran leadership that can sort of step in when needed. Magdalena Eriksson plays for Bayern. Caroline Simon, the German national team defender, does as well. Perla Vigosdottir, another Icelandic Dortier, is there. Oh, I almost forgot to mention Sarah Zadrazil. I mean, the Austrian. My God, what an incredible midfield wizard she is.
Yeah.
They have all of this depth. They have all of this star power. And the way that Germans look at Bayern in general is that in the league, we definitely root against them in pretty much every last instance. But in the Champions League, they are the representatives of our nation, so we do root for them. And we also root for them in a very, very general sense to have a strong team for the German national team. That applies to both the men's and the women's game. So there's a cognitive dissonance when it comes to Bayern. We're a little bit schizophrenic in that regard. Now, I should point out the fact that us Frauen Bundesliga enthusiasts do like to go see Bayern play, and we also like to see them on the road. Whenever they're traveling to Frankfurt or Freiburg or something like this, I like to go and see them because they do have a large traveling support for our women's team. They have a drum section. They go to the supporter section afterwards with the megaphone and things like this. So it's not the greatest tragedy in the world that Bayern have a strong team on the women's side. Of course, when it comes to Bayern in the Champions League, it doesn't matter if it's men or women, we're going to root for them.
Staying here in Frauen Bundesliga, we've got match week 11 coming up this weekend. A little bit of a fun scheduling quirk where 6 of the top 7 teams are playing each other in 3 matches, so that should be exciting. Mm-hmm. Leverkusen and Wolfsburg, Werder Bremen and Freiburg, Eintracht Frankfurt and RB Leipzig.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at the table, I know there's quite a bit of a ways to go in the season. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Peter. I want you to make a prediction. What do you think the top 4 looks like at the end of the season?
The top 4 looks as it does, I would say. There are some up-and-coming players that we will discuss when we get to the German national team. Koretz Kai for SC Freiburg, for example, and also the very unfortunately named Alana Sehitler for Bayern. I think that the top 4 looks like this. I'll be rooting for Freiburg to pull up in the top 4. Leipzig have a chance because Giovanna Hoffmann, who is actually a former Freiburg product, has gotten off to an excellent start this season as well. So I think that Freiburg and Leipzig can potentially pull their way up there. Leverkusen have their weaknesses. I think they're lacking a little bit of star power beyond yet another Icelandic dottir. It's Carolina Lee Williams dottir, if I'm probably butchering that. But Bremen and Freiburg and Leipzig could potentially pull up and become top of part of that top 4.
Where do you think the teams finish? Like in what order? Who do you think wins the league? Who grabs those Champions League spots? What are you projecting there?
I'll go Eintracht, Bayern, Wolfsburg, Leverkusen. And of course, Eintracht narrowly missed out on the Champions League. They had to qualify this year and they didn't make it, unfortunately. But they also didn't have Sens and Volta with them last year. So it's quite possible that they could have challenged for the title had they had those 2 players last year.
All right. Well, speaking of the Champions League, we are a Champions League program. We've referenced it a couple times. Big old match coming up for Wolfsburg. Coming up against Roma. They narrowly lose. They didn't really look great in that first match against Roma. They drop it 1-0. Since then, they've won 2 on the spin in the Champions League, 2 5-0 victories, convincing 5-0 victories over Galatasaray. You mentioned her earlier, Lynette Beerenstein. Mm-hmm. She is putting up a lot of goals, wreaking havoc on defenses in Frauen Bundesliga. Hasn't quite put it together yet in the Champions League. What do you expect in this Wolfsburg-Roma match? And do you have any theories on maybe what the disconnect is with Beerenstein's play between league play and Champions League play?
It's tough. Tournament football is always tough on tight turnarounds. I think my tactical advice for Wolfsburg would be to deploy that 3-4-3 that we saw in the initial 5-0 win over Galatasaray. That had Jonsdottir playing up front. Sven Juhut, one of my favorite players, slanted right. Blomqvist was also a surprise starter on the left. She ended up grabbing a hat trick. That was the first time I believe I saw Endemann work as a wingback, and I was exceptionally impressed. Janina Minge, another rising, versatile, upcoming German national team talent. She did a great job in defense. She can also work in midfield. Wedermeyer had a very, very good match. Both matches were incredibly impressive, but I think the initial 5-0 is the blueprint on what they want to work on. So I might even recommend resting Beerenstein in the Champions League in the forthcoming match and going with that 3-4-3 again because it clicked almost immediately. When it comes to Wolfsburg, they have good depth. They really do. Wolfsburg, one of the reasons that they have gotten off to a sort of a sputtering start this season in the Champions League is because they lost a lot of important players. They lost 3 important players, to be precise, at the beginning of last year. One was Dominic Jensen, the Dutch defender, who was known as Dominic Bloodworth at times because she went with her married name. They lost Volta, who went to Eintracht Frankfurt. And they lost Oberdorf. So Wolfsburg, of course, needs some time to gel with some of their new signings. And also, the player that I've been impressed with most on a versatility level is Lynn Wilms, another Dutch defender who's she's worked as left back, she's worked in the midfield, she's worked as a wing back as well. The reason that I would have Wolfsburg third is because they don't have the same kind of depth as Bayern. They have Latvein, who's a very good player. I like this new Norwegian one, Kieland, too. She, I think, set up 2 of Blomqvist's goals in that 5-0 victory. But Bayern also have players like Dahlmann and Lohmann, who can sort of be plugged in anywhere on short notice. So it's kind of a little bit of a rebuilding year for Tommy Strutt and Wolfsburg. But I like that 3-4-3. That would be my advice.
Totally agree with you there. You mentioned Bayern in that depth. Is the sense around Bayern that this is a team, obviously tremendously disappointing last year, get bounced in the group stage out of the group of life, sort of have the insight? I believe they've already clinched a quarterfinal spot, but they are in that battle with Arsenal in Group C. What are the expectations around Bayern in this year's Champions League?
Well, my friend, as an Arsenal supporter, I do offer my condolences. I believe Grant already offered his condolences to you on a previous pod there for what happened. The funny thing about that match was that Arsenal, they were leading at the half. They also equalized. And then those 3 goals just sort of came bang, bang, bang. With Bayern, we need to discuss the fact that Kroos, actually the keeper, has that malignant tumor, and Mamutovic, who is 20 years old, is having some teething problems, and she had some for the German national team as well, as we
Yep.
had indeed. So anything is possible, and Arsenal is an incredibly tough team. But I think, you know what, when it comes to the Champions League, I can't wait for the women to switch to the men's format now, because these group phase things can get just a little bit tedious. I mean, of course, they've already clinched the berth, so they can go on cruise control. You saw them go on cruise control in that last 1-1 match. They're going to rotate in very, very heavily. And, it's entirely possible that they don't really care. All right.
There we go. Yes, special guest.
Her first appearance.
Here's something for your shorts. This is Minu. She's of French descent, but she roots for the Germans.
Let's go.
Amazing.
Ich losgelöst von der Erde.
Outstanding.
Wonderful. So with Bayern, Peter, is it semifinals that you think that team's got their eye on? Do they want to make the final? Do they have aspirations of taking the title home? I don't believe Bayern's ever won a Champions League title. I might have to double check, fact check myself. But how far do you think this team goes?
Yeah, they have never won a Champions League. Actually, one of the questions that Grant sent me a little bit, tracking back to Frauen Bundesliga a bit, is we have 2 East German sides in there, Carl Zeiss Jena and what used to be my old club when I lived in Berlin, Turbine Potsdam. They've won 2 Champions League titles, and I don't think Bayern have won one. And of course, that would be their expectation. An interesting fact about Bayern: this is the first year that the women have been given their own tricot. They've been given their own jersey. So there's been a lot of investment in this club, not only in terms of players and some stadium renovations, but also the marketing. The marketing machine of Bayern is behind them big time. And Uli Hoeneß, rube and rogue that he is, kind of considered an obnoxious character by German football fans. If Bayern don't win the Männer Bundesliga, I imagine that he will say that I meant the Frauen. That's what I meant. So.
They certainly have a chance. I mean, you talked about the depth. Very impressive 5-2 win over Arsenal. We know they're on to the knockout stage. I think they're very live to compete for the title. Obviously, there's that little club in Barcelona that's probably going to be tricky to overcome, but that's why they play the games. So we talk about these 2 Champions League clubs. We talk about Bayern Munich and Wolfsburg, and you had referenced earlier that Bayern is almost like the feeder club into the national team. Let's talk about that national team of yours, because you were on the scene for the 2 friendlies that recently happened. A 6-0 win over Switzerland and a 2-1 loss to Italy in Germany. So dealer's choice here. You could start with the good news. You could start with the less good news, or maybe the bad news, if you want to call it that. What did you see in those 2 matches? What jumped out to you from your spot in the stands?
Well, there have actually been 4 friendlies under the newly appointed Bundestrainer Christian Würk, and I've attended 3 of those 4 friendlies. I did not make the one in Wembley. Unfortunately, that was a cracking affair in his debut. Yeah. The one in Duisburg, with an impressive 25,000 attendance, was a farewell to the Legends Knights. Alexandra Popp, Marina Heggering, and Merle Froms all officially retired from the German women's national team. Popp gave away her armband to Julia Gewinn of Bayern in a very touching way and said, "Viel Spaß mit dem Haufen." Have fun with the crew. So we ended up losing that one to Australia, and that one was... I don't really care about that one. Friday night at the Letzigrund. Of course, when you're in Zurich, it's like being in Germany. When you're in Zurich and you're Basel, it's like being in Germany, except for the fact that people speak the Schweizerdeutsch. It's a little bit of a dialect there. But we had a good time there in the second half at the Letzigrund. First half was awful, just god-awful. There was a low block. Yeah, I mean, they were deploying, I don't know, it was like a 7-2-1 formation or something like this for the Swiss national team. And nobody could crack it. We ended up getting that goal at the end of the half. It was your girl that you like from the Premiership, Nüsken, who polished off a corner. And then the goals came raining down in the second half. The way the German press described it was a successful debutante ball. I could just picture, Koret Zakai and Alana Hitler being presented at a cotillion or something like that. But the substitutes obviously really made a difference. Freigang and Schüller both grabbed braces. And for Freigang, that's amazing news because she really wants that 10 slot. She really does. And Dahlmann and Lohmann are competitors for it. The second half was obviously killer, and our Swiss hosts were happy to play the German song for us, Major Tom, Völlig losgelöst, our tour anthem that I was singing a little bit earlier with my cat. A lot of good things to say there. Zakai was amazing. Zakai is an amazing story. She's a Freiburg girl. She was born and raised there. She's scored 5 Bundesliga goals this season, one with her head, 2 with her left, 2 with her right. I looked up some highlights.
Wow.
On her. Yeah, she is a real up and comer, and so is Hitler. Which if anyone's coming to travel to Switzerland this summer, I should let you know this does happen. Okay, if you come to Austria, southern Germany, Switzerland, you might meet someone called Hitler or something like this. It's an awkward conversation. You could have a perfectly cordial conversation with somebody in our neck of the woods, and all of a sudden they tell you their last name is Hitler, and you can't save them in your phone. It's just not appropriate. And the German broadcast people have been doing their best. They're trying to call her Sittler. They're trying to make it to pronounce it.
Sure.
So that we don't have to worry about this stuff. But she's only 19 years old. She scored 2 goals for Bayern, so she's also a real up-and-comer.
Wow.
Our girl Ann-Katrin Berger was not with the team because she needed a break after the NWSL season. And I should say that Vuk has traveled to the States to visit both her and Almut Schult, who plays for Kansas City Current now. He's traveling all over the place. He goes to Spain. He flies all the way over to the United States. He kind of reminds me of me. He's always on the road between football stadiums. I really like this guy. And so that was awesome. That was incredible. We come to Monday night, and I traveled up there to Bochum. 15,000 people there, a fairly decent crowd. There were 17,000 at the Letzigrund on Friday night, and the atmosphere was amazing. Things were a little bit more subdued. There were tons of rotations. This was all experimentation from Vuk, starting Mamutovic, for example. The center half pairing of Dorsun and Linda. Mamutovic and Linder with those errors that ended up we had those problems. He tried out a new midfield pairing. He moved Minga up to pair with Sens. He did give Freigang the start. She played well. Hoffmann was kind of missing in action. She'll be sad that she missed out on that audition. I thought the fullbacks played well. They pressed high. Gwyn, who's the new national team captain, and Felicitas Rauch, who also got a goal. Yeah, apart from those 2 mistakes, it wasn't too bad of a game. Again, we're talking about 4 friendlies here, and he's just been appointed, so he's doing a lot of experimentation. We'll know a great deal more about the German national team when the Nations League comes in. It is in February already, yes?
I think that's right, yeah.
And as a loyal supporter of the Frauen Nationalmannschaft, I'll be on the road, I'll be in the stadium, I'll be giving it a good scout, and doing all the things that I love to do at a women's football match: sing the Torah anthem, talk to the kids who are coming there with their class, so that they can see female footballers play and dream about becoming a professional someday. But I expect a lot more in the Nations League. I don't expect any more losses from Christian Vuk leading up to the Euros. Otherwise, his young coaching regime, can be called into question, because experimentation is fine in these 4 friendlies. But when we're in true competitive matches where unlimited substitutions practically are not allowed, I want some regular starters in this 4-2-3-1 system. We do have high expectations of our Mädels here in the Bundesrepublik. We absolutely do. And we need them to return to the summit of Europe. We would like that very much.
Yeah, Germany takes on Netherlands on February 21st in the UEFA Nations League. Should be a banger right out of the gate.
Definitely looking forward to that one. Peter, I wanted to rewind a little bit. Laura Freigang had 2 spectacular goals against Switzerland. I think both of them assisted by Pia Sophie Walter, who you mentioned.
Yes.
I know you mentioned Christian Vuk and his experimentation, things going on. Do you feel like this might be the Freigang leap? Do you feel like this is sort of like Freigang's moment to kind of step into that post-Alex Pop world and sort of like grab that spot?
I sincerely hope so. And I hope to see, I think Germans are a little bit obsessed with, and this is why they kind of like Bayern to succeed. We like to see as many players from the same club team locked into the starting 11 as possible, because we believe that there's good club chemistry that can be translated to the national level. So we have Sens, who is doing a bang-up job for Frankfurt in midfield. We have Volta, who can start at fullback. We have Freigang, and then many of us are keeping our fingers crossed that Onyomi grabs that starting number 9 slot as well. You know, Freigang, it was put on her because there were a lot of players, a lot of experienced players who Vuk didn't even call up this time, in both of these international breaks. Sarah Debritz and Lina Margul were only called up. Debritz played a little bit against England. Margul was called up as an emergency person. Latwein and Endemann, they were on the reserve squad, although both of them ended up seeing some action in this international break. Yeah, he left a lot of experienced veterans out to really give Freigang her chance. And it's tough. In attack, we are really very deep. The story in defense, particularly in central defense, this was the story that got us booted out of the 2023 World Cup, and that's still a little bit of a problem. Linder and Dorsun didn't really mesh at all. And of course, without Marina Hegering now, who do you play there in central defense? Probably Minge, but who the other person is, I don't know.
Quick follow-up to that, Peter. You mentioned Vivian Endemann and a recent move to more of like a wingback spot.
Mm-hmm.
I thought her service out from the wide channels was also sensational. I mean, I think she just has tremendous touch. Is that like a new wrinkle, or has that been a part of her game, or how has that developed?
She was trained as a right flanker, but because that's ordinarily Brand's place on Wolfsburg, she spent most of the time playing on the left last season. So, I mean, what does it come down to with football? It's about practicing as much as possible. If you can play both flanks and you can play with both feet, you really have an excellent amount of muscle memory for getting those services right. Her game, almost because Brand forced her over to the other side, that really benefited her a great deal.
Yeah. I mean, the versatility is just really impressive from a lot of the players on your squad over there. Do we want to do pronunciation game for a couple minutes?
All right. This idea, courtesy of our guy, Peter Weisse, Vice City. We're going to delve into the world of some German pronunciations. Let's play a game, Grant, where we present some names in our very American style and then get it straight from the Peter's mouth about what we need to be doing. So I'll kick it off. This is a name that has come up quite a bit. I go with Laura Freigang. I know that's not right, but can you set us straight here?
You pronounce it Laura Freigang.
Okay. Clara Bull.
Clara Bull. How's your U? Can we do an umlaut? U.
I think I nailed it.
Good.
Okay. So you mentioned we appreciate this player for Chelsea Football Club. I go with Shoka Nuskin. How close am I?
Schkoke? Schkoke is not a German name, but that's how I hear it pronounced on the broadcasts. And once again, we have the U. Nuskin.
Nuskin. I never knew the cruddy American rock band. I never knew they were Motley Crue. I never pronounced it that way. They had the umlaut too, so I guess that must be what they were going for.
Well, that Sacha Cohen film, it would have technically been pronounced Bruno, but no, they called it Bruno instead.
There you go.
How about a German national team manager, Christian Wörk?
Again, we are here on the umlauts, okay? So there's easy umlauts and there's hard umlauts. The A umlaut you can do quite easily. It's just A. Perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely perfect. The O umlaut, it's also easy. It's Ver.
One more time.
That's right. All right, so your A umlauts and your O umlauts are immaculate. They're perfect. The challenging one for everyone is the U umlaut, because you really got to go deep into your throat and you got to go U.
Yeah, it's got to come from like down in here, right?
Precisely. Yeah, go ahead.
Real guttural.
Yeah. All right. Nothing wrong with There we go. But she's got it. All right. Excellent. Now, obviously over here in these ugly American accents, we just call them Bayern Munich.
Bayern München. That's a tough
München. All right. And we get the...
That was very...
I mean, we're asking a lot of umlaut questions.
Yeah, you're doing it really good here. You said it perfectly. Go ahead.
Bayern München.
München. Yeah.
München.
That was good. I think when you have a consonant following there, you can easily roll down that hill.
I like it. I got a couple more.
Mhm.
Ulebrand.
Jule Brand.
Ulebrand.
Brand. Yes.
All right, we'll work on that.
That's good. All you have to do is make sure it's a strong A.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Do you want to fire another one? Yeah, I got some other ideas. Okay, so you mentioned a couple players who have a similar end to their last name, Endemann, Dullman, but I noticed it seems like we're a tick off on those names too. How do those sound?
Those are great. I mean, your A's are just fine. Endemann, perfect. Dahlmann, perfect. Klinsmann, you've had practice. Jürgen Klinsmann.
I'm trying to forget that, buddy.
Oh, come on.
He was fine. Yeah, he's fine. He's fine.
You want Bruce Arena back, do you?
I mean, we've said on this show we're not too into the U.S. men's national team. Lost me a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I digress.
Well,
Show primarily about women's football. All right, gentlemen. Anything else we want to hit before we get out of here?
tell you what, I have one for you. So we were talking about this the first time we met, like how on like the American or the English Wikipedia page, they call the German women's national team Die Nationalelf, which is totally false. Nobody says that. Absolutely nobody says that. You've heard me say all sorts of different things, but the official name of the team, and this is about as German as it gets, gentlemen. This is really German. So I'm going to lay it on you here. It is the Deutsche Fußballnationalmannschaft der Frauen. Dino, you're first.
Is there a shorter version? Can I go with the Mannschaft?
It's important no, we're gonna. I believe in you. I have faith in you. You can do this. You can do this. All right. I believe in you. It is the Deutsche Fußballnationalmannschaft der Frauen.
Deutsche Fußballnationalmannschaft der Frauen?
Beautiful. That was beautiful.
Let's go.
I told you could do it.
Let's go.
You okay, Grant, you're up.
Let's get my dual citizenship in motion right now. I'm ready.
There we go. Yeah, we might be needing that in the coming years, Peter. Deutsche Fußballnationalmannschaft der Frauen.
I am so proud of you. You have absolutely done it. And don't forget that you can come see not only the Deutsche Fußballnationalmannschaft der Frauen, but also all the best women's European teams in my neck of the woods here, in Switzerland, in Zurich, in Basel, all over the place. It's going to be a great tournament this summer. Tickets are already available on UEFA.com. And if anybody... Hell, I will take anyone to a women's football match and show them what a great time it is. So come on over to this neck of the woods, people.
I was going to say, yeah, we're definitely going to try to take you up on that offer. Got to figure out some logistics over here at the ITC. But yeah, to all of our pals who watch the show, who have been great appreciators of your insight, Peter, I'm sure you're bound to run into some of them over there for sure.
I expect you gentlemen here. You've passed the pronunciation test, and now you got to get over here to watch some quality women's football. It's going to be an awesome tournament. What else is going on football-wise in July anyway? What else are you going to do?
There you go.
That's got to be top of the list for sure. All right,
NWSL fans, don't yell at us.
Yeah, those are the dog days of NWSL. Okay, come on. All right, gentlemen. I think we did it. This has been another episode Into the Channel. Sincere thank you for watching, listening, following, liking, subscribing, just plain hanging out with your boys. And remember to like if you liked and subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. Big thanks to our guy, Peter Weiss, for joining us. Thank you again, Peter.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was an absolute honor.
And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grand Angle, for our very first 4-week show. How about that? We are cooking. I appreciate you, bro.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even realize 4 shows in a week. Likewise, buddy. Appreciate the help. Peter, thank you again for joining us. You're always welcome to come back to discuss the Deutsche Fußballnationalmannschaft der Frauen. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you all next time.
Now you're just showing off.